Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another Spooktober edition of the Seaman Cinema. Sit down. Oh, we are caught up, man. We are finally on the right day with the right movie. It is October 6th. We've just finished catching up on our third, fourth, and fifth movies, the last of which was The Addams Family 2. If you want to see all my thoughts on that spooky, kooky animated flick, you can check them out right up there. But now, we turn our attention to a darker place. Oh, we're going back to live action. We're going back into legitimately scary, creepy, haunting kind of stuff. Ooh, this is one that I had mediocre expectations for, and I think it met my mediocre expectations. Not a perfect movie, but definitely nails the spooky ambiance, man, like across the board. The little apartment like building that we're in, or boarding house maybe is the more correct term, but either way, where we are located and what we build to gives us some fantastic creepy ambiance and settings. And I think even if the script doesn't hit like a full-on homer, everything else around it worked enough for me to enjoy this one. What are we talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat. We're getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into No One Gets Out Alive. And this is the directorial debut in the feature-length department for Santiago Mangini. He had done some shorts previously, but this was his first foray into a full live-action feature. And I like what Mangini does. I think he creates a really spooky setting in this boarding house that we're in, and he creates some really creepy visuals. While you're watching this movie, man, you're gonna just see people like pop up in the distance, and almost all of them obviously are ghosts. But when they pop up, they're always kind of far back in the distance, kind of shadowed, but just the dead center of their eyes are white. I can't tell you why. I don't know why. That's just the look of the ghost. But it was unsettling and unnerving every time it happened, man. Like, I mean, you're watching our main character, Ambar, played by Christina Rodlow, and like she'll be just walking, and all of a sudden, like she goes by, and there's a spooky person there, and he's got some cool camera tricks too, man. There's a couple times where like she sees things like through another prism, right? Like it's a window or a shower curtain or something, and it's like slightly obstructed, but there's definitely something there, and then she moves it, and it's gone. You get some really nice camera tricks like that, and some of the scares are a little bit more on the basic side. But the thing that I really dug from Mangini with this movie is that it is building to something the entire time. I mean, we are constantly being teased by a concrete box. We don't know what's in that box, but we are teased by that box and how it has something to do with the overall story the entire movie. And about 3/4 of the way through, I was like, if the payoff on this box is not phenomenal, or at least something that I've never seen before, this movie is going to land in a real hard fail. And fortunately for the movie, Mangini creates something that I have certainly never seen on film before, man. Like, it was one of those, I was sitting here watching the movie just going, this needs to hit. If this doesn't hit, and like when the moment is starting to build and it's happening, you're like, this needs to hit. If this doesn't hit, the movie's a failure. And they psyched me out because I thought for a minute they were pulling an old trick where I was like, you're gonna let me down. And then they do reveal what's going on with that box and the creature that is inside of it. And let me tell you, I mean, like I said, nothing like I've ever seen before, and it was terrifying. Like, I had to go back after I watched it and like slow down and like freeze frame on some of it just to pick up on all the little things that were going. That is why I was okay with this movie, because I think for the most part I didn't really jump a lot, but like I said, Mangini does a good job in creating a really creepy ambiance. And while not everything hits, the fact that the end payoff hit me in a way where I was like, didn't see that coming, and that is exactly what I wanted in that creepy, scary factor. I think for the most part it works. Now, on the script side, we've got John Coker, Fernanda Koppel, and Adam Neville. who's the book, who wrote the book that it's based on. So you got Koppel and Croker writing the screenplay here, and like I said, they do a good job in setting the creepy, mysterious, ghostly, haunting kind of ambiance inside of, you know, the boarding house that we're in. And, you know, it mixes in there, and something that I always appreciate is when you can kind of mix in a different vibe outside of horror, right? So for this one, certainly immigrants, and this one kind of speaks more to illegal immigrants, you know, and people that are in the country struggling to try to become, you know, legalized and just trying to make their way through it. Like, Ambar's character is someone who gets dealt a rough hand, and that rough hand kind of screws up what she was hoping to do. And now she's trying to rebound from that. And in a world where, you know, we see so much going on with the border and immigration and illegal aliens, you know, this is a movie that will speak to a lot of people and a lot of people's experiences in America. And that's fine, but it just never really clicked all the way, you know, with the story, where I was, like, totally invested in what was going on with Ambar. Like, anytime we kind of dove into her story, I was just like, can we go back to the boarding house? Because, like, there is some stuff we got to figure out in there. And, you know, I think, you know, pacing-wise, and just, it has ups and downs and ebbs and flows, but they do a good job in setting up things for Mangini to execute, you know, from a visual standpoint that definitely get, you know, some scares and some creepy tones in there. And, you know, like I said, for the most part, it works. But it works best when it's really diving into what's going on at the boarding house. And the last act is nothing but that. And that was where I lived and why I walked away with a good taste in my mouth. Because as we started to figure out what was going on in the house, you get to see that end product, and it hit for me. Now, do I think you could have done some more interesting things in blending, you know, this idea of immigrants and this boarding house and the horror elements? Yes, I think there's a way that this could have worked a little bit better. And there's also just some things that they kind of leave hanging out there. Like, there's this girl who's kind of friends with Ambar where she works, and, you know, is trying to help her with some stuff, and spoilers, she just disappears. And no explanation whatsoever. You know, it's one of those where it's like, well, what happened? Did she get deported? Did she get caught doing something she shouldn't have been doing? Like, I just kind of felt a little weird that we never closed that out in any shape or form. Even if it didn't hit Ambar, like, I would have liked to have seen maybe myself what the heck was going on with that character. So, like I said, it's an up and down script, but it creates the ambiance that you want it to create. And like I said, that last act is where I wanted to live the whole movie, man. Like, once we enter the boarding house in the third act of the movie and we never leave it, that's when things really started to click in for me. And on the performance side, I think Christina Rodlow does a fine job as Ambar. You know I wasn't super invested in her story outside of the boarding house. Outside of, like, the things that were directly tying into what was going on at the boarding house. There's family things that I was invested in. But it was just like when she was hopping around and like just not at the boarding house, I was like, nah. But I think her performance is pretty solid. You know, I think she does a good job, you know, carrying this one, and for sure does a wonderful job, like, with being scared. Like, when things start going down and Ambar is reacting to the things that are going on, I was like, girl, I'm with you. I'm with you. Like, I'd be screaming my head off too, man. She does get some creepy things, and, you know, there's like just what's going on is stuff that I think the way that, you know, Rodlow reacts, I think works quite well. There's a whole slew of other characters. You know, you have one girl who's at the boarding house early, then another pair of girls. That's the other thing. The boarding house only houses women, and it's at a low rent, so that's why it's perfect for illegal immigrants. But, you know, you end up with another pair that come in on the second half of the movie, and they all do a fine job. We got a bunch of different ghosts that pop up throughout the course of the movie, and all of them, you know, capture that spooky feeling that you want to get. But there were two other people that I thought did kind of pop in this movie, and that was Mark Menchaca, who plays Red. He's the guy who's kind of running this boarding house. You know, it was like a boarding house a while ago. Those owners kind of disappeared. Actually, I think it was his dad. And when he passed, they kind of took it over. And it's him and his brother, who is played by David Figlioli, Becker. And these two guys are really interesting characters, and they're kind of polar opposites. You know, Red is someone who you can kind of feel for and like kind of root for. You know, he seems to be the guy that's willing to help our characters inside the boarding house when things are starting to get kind of weird. And on the flip side, you have you know, his brother, played by Figlioli, who is mysterious and creepy the whole movie. Like, just kind of pops up in places at night doing things, and you're like, what is going on with that dude? And when he is finally given the chance to be full on the screen and involved in what's going on in the plot, I thought Figlioli did a phenomenal job in being scary. Like, I think like he nails like the terror that he is supposed to represent and portray at the end of the movie. But really, like I said, this one really does come down mostly to Christina Rodlow, who I think carries the movie pretty well. And, you know, it's not perfect. You know, I think it could have been scarier. I think it could have been creepier. I think you could have tied in that immigrant story a little bit better into what you were doing in the horror realm. I go back to His House, you know, from last year, where that was a movie that, like, you know, took the idea of refugees and what they go through and tied it into the story in a way that was so seamless and perfect, and also like representative of the culture where our main characters came from. This is a movie that I think needed to do that a little bit better. If you could have locked in on the blending of those stories a little bit more and had slightly better pacing, the middle dips a bit. I think this could have been a real big knockout. But for the most part, you know, if you're in the mood for something creepy, something haunting, and you want just that ambiance and that feel, then what you get with No One Gets Out Alive works really well. And I think Mangini captures all of that stuff. I will say, though, that the end of the movie really hit. And how, you know, you take the idea of the title and, like, No One Gets Out Alive. How that plays into what happens at the end, while it's a little open-ended, creates something interesting that I would have, I'd be okay going back. We'll say that. And I thought it was an interesting way to kind of wrap everything out and maintain the essence of what the title is. And that, I think, was something, again, that worked. Like I said, the third act of this movie got progressively stronger for me. And, you know, it left itself in an area where it's like, if you wanted to go back, I'm intrigued by the story. And I would like to see how that plays out following the end of the movie. But for me, I think it's time for a little score action, because I ain't got nothing else to say without spoiling stuff. So let's get the Sea Maniacs up. There they are. Look, ambiance, setting, tone, creepy vibes, Mangini and co. crush that stuff. I think the ambiance of the film and just the setting and the visual style work really well. I think the story is a little disjointed, as its two main kind of things that it's trying to do, be a haunted house movie and, you know, kind of have this immigrant story. They kind of butt heads a little bit, and they don't mesh as well as I would have liked them to have. And had they, I think you would have had a way better movie on your hands. And again, a little bit of a dip in the middle, but for the most part, you know, I think the creepy tone and setting really work quite well. I think the lead performance that we get from Christina Rodlow is really quite strong, and I mean, just the visual stuff in this movie, specifically in that third act, was just stuff where I was like, yeah, I wish we could have gotten here a little bit quicker. But, you know, I think there's some interesting things in there. There's definitely performance stuff that works. And like I said, I think Mangini does a good job in crafting something that is creepy. So for me, I'm going to go 2.5 out of 5 Sea Maniacs. It's dead middle. I think this movie had a lot of potential that it didn't quite capitalize on, but it's worth a watch. There's good elements in there, and like I said, there's a really good movie somewhere inside of what's there. But, you know, it's October. You need a spooky, a little creepy movie. This totally satisfies that itch, I think, as well. And, you know, it's on Netflix. Really easy to find and very accessible. Just not not a home run. Not every movie's going to be a home run, but I think there's stuff that's worthwhile in there, even though some of it, you know, falters a little bit. So there you go, man. Those are all the Seaman's non-spoiler thoughts on No One Gets Out Alive. You know, just missed the mark for me. I think you could have had a home run, but we just missed it. So now that I'm done talking, blabbing, it's your turn, man. I want to know what you're thinking. Have you checked out No One Gets Out Alive on Netflix? How did it work for you as a haunted house movie? What did you find interesting in the movie? And did you think it all worked? Or were there problems that had pathways that could have maybe worked a little bit better? And more than anything, I want to know how the third act hit for you. Once we are just solely inside that boarding house and you're going through what's going on in the third act, how did that hit compared to the rest of the movie? And do you wish you could have lived in that realm a little bit longer? And of course, if you didn't see No One Gets Out Alive, is this something that was on your Spooktober list? Did I maybe pique your interest in wanting to check it out? Like I said, there's imagery worth watching there. Is this just not one that's up your alley, and you'll just pass? I'm cool with my ghost stories and my haunted houses. Like, I got enough of those. Anything you're thinking on No One Gets Out Alive, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, goes down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to y'all down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with C-Man all Spooktober long, whether I'm talking my Halloween and horror movies, or I'm just talking about regular movies and TV and trailer reactions. You dig what I'm doing, you want to show a little love, support, and be here for all of it, well then hey, come join C-Maniac Nation. Super simple. All you gotta do is jump over there, hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts, and until next time, for the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, I've been the C-Man, I'm signing off. Peace. Oh, hey, what's going on? You must be sticking around because you're looking for more content featuring this guy. Well, guess what? You're in the right place. You can check out more videos right here and right here. And if you have and you want to come join that C-Maniac Nation, you can hit that subscribe right over there.